Right, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how I weld a diff. There's probably quite a few ways, different ways people weld them. I mean, you literally could just get your MIG torch, fill it up with weld and put it back in the car and this video is over. A lot of people do that, they get away with it. Sometimes you have problems fitting it back in the car. Sometimes you'll do that, it'll work, fit in the car fine, but won't last very long. So although it's not a particularly difficult job, there are quite a few little sort of tips and stages you can go through to make it fit better and make it last longer. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video, just how I do them. Obviously, I'm not saying this is the way, but this is just how I do it. So I'll start off by taking off the crown wheel, getting it out of the way, because we don't want to get any weld splatter on these teeth, because it really sticks on there, and then obviously it's just going to wear your gear out. So I'll get this crown wheel off, I'll put the diff on the stand, and then I'll give you a closer look at exactly what I'm going to do and why I'm doing it. Okay, so I've got it on the stand. You obviously don't need a stand like this. You could just put this part in the vise. That's how I did it for many years. I just because I do a few of these, I made you know, this stand that will take them every time. It just makes it a lot easier. Now the first part I'm going to do, which is what most people miss, is to strip this out and clean it, because you know, when we're welding it, anything you weld, whether you know, a panel on a car or a frame on a bike or whatever, you know, you always clean it up. It's the most important part of welding. So this is full of grease, it's got actual surface rust on the teeth, you know. I think people avoid taking them apart because they can be really tricky to put back together if you don't know what you're doing. But I'm going to show you how to put these back together. It literally is like, it takes like a minute to put all this sort of back in properly. So you know, don't worry about stripping it out. The first thing to do is take this clip off. Try not to lose it. Don't need the speedo drive, I can throw that away. Not going to be using that. And then just going to push the pin out like that. Push down on the gear so they all swivel round. So take the top one out. So now the little spider gears, just two of those, and then the big ones are the side gears. There'll be a couple of shims, little thin shims. They might be stuck to the housing, so make sure you check for them. Right, so yeah, that's literally it. That's all the bits, and obviously the pin. You wouldn't weld those normally, no. It's just because they're in the middle of there, and people just don't really want to have to strip them out. So take your time, strip them all out. We're going to clean these right up so they're nice and clean to weld. You're going to get a stronger weld with less splatter, little like balls of weld dropping down in through the diff when you're trying to weld it. That can cause big damage, so we're going to avoid that. Okay, so I've got all my pumps cleaned up nicely. As you can see, that is going to be so much better to weld than that greasy old rusty set of gears we had before. It's worth the extra 10-15 minutes it took me to clean those up, just to make sure we get a decent weld. Cleaned everything up, the pins, the shims. So now I'm going to set it back up on the stand and I'll show you how to assemble it all. Okay, so very simple way of putting this back together. Sorry if it wobbles a bit, but I've actually mounted the camera on the diff itself, so just hopefully you can get a better view. So start by putting the pin in halfway, get one of your shims, stick that on to the pin, first spider gear, put that onto the pin, and the other spider gear opposite direction, and then the shim. Okay, so they're all on there. Just push the pin right through, put the circlip on, get your first side gear, pop it in, goes right to the bottom, make sure it's directly at the bottom. Second one, put that in, and then just twist the whole lot back round, and you're back to where you were when we started. That's it. That's as simple as it is, less than a minute. Okay, so before I weld this diff, there's quite an important, what I think is a really important stage that is definitely overlooked. These, obviously, as you've seen, these can just freely move now. So when you go to put your drive shaft in, if this is not lined up, you're not going to get your drive shaft in. It needs to be lined up, and it actually needs to be lined up almost spot on because of the splines. So you can either put your drive shafts in there and that will hold it all square while you weld it, or if you're doing a lot, or you know, if you've got access to a lathe, you can just make something like this up. It's a bit of a dummy shaft, so that fits perfectly inside the splined end, and this fits perfectly in the housing, so that's just going to go in there. Got another one for this end. Now the good thing about these, I don't know if you can see, if I take it out a little bit, if I can get the light on it, you can see the splines down in here. If you drop, if some weld lands on there, you know, like a bit of splat or something, you're not going to get your drive shaft in and out. You know, you're going to end up hammering it in. The same as if this isn't lined up, you're never going to get your drive shaft in. It's exactly the same on both sides. So let me just get that back in there. Okay, the other thing is, if you put your drive shaft in there, let's just pretend this is a shaft, but it actually comes right up and hits that centre pin. Now if you get some weld on the end of that drive shaft, the same thing is going to happen. You're never going to get it back out of here. So when you make these tubes, or if you're using the drive shaft itself, don't put it all the way up to the centre pin. So you can see I've cut that, I've made that so it literally just goes to cover the splines, and it doesn't hit the pin. So there's no chance I'm going to get any splatter on there and get this stuck in here. So yeah, got two of those. Also, the other thing is these bearings. Now if you've got a plastic caged bearing, you want to remove this before you weld it, because obviously it's all going to get very hot and you'll just melt the cage on these bearings. These are metal, they're not being replaced, so I'm going to leave them on there. But the same thing, we don't want to get any weld spark splatter on these bearings because it'll ruin them. So I've just got some bit of off-cut scrap aluminium that I've made to fit in there. Same for that one. And now we can safely weld anywhere we like without getting it, you know, without risking damage to anything that we actually need to keep good. So I'll get the welder set up and then I'll show you exactly where I'm going to weld. Okay, so I've got my welder all set up. We're on 24 volts and about 14 per minute on the wire speed. Now, important thing to realise when you're welding this is, if I can just show you, you're not trying to make this one big shaft. You don't have to have loads and loads of weld. You know, you're not effectively making one shaft. All you're doing is you're just trying to stop this action. That's all you need to do, is just stop it doing that. If you can stop those gears from moving on each other, then you make the gears and this housing the strength. That's what's going to join the two shafts together that run right the way through, not your weld. You don't want to build it up and rely on your weld to hold, because it just wouldn't do it. The weld would break straight away. You need to just stop them moving on each other and weld them to the casing, and then this whole unit becomes the strength of the joint, if you like. So what I'm going to do is weld, if you can see, it's right down in the corners where the teeth touch. Same on here. Is start welding down there, to and fro, and then come back out and go over it again, and then probably again until these two teeth join. So fill up that whole corner level with these two teeth. Same there, and well, in all four corners. I'll run a little bit around there just to join the shaft to these spider gears, and then lastly I'll run a bead of weld around here, so join the housing to the gear. Same on here, well, same on all four. So all four of them will have a point where they're welded to the housing, and they'll all be welded to each other. Not massive amounts of weld, because that's not where the strength is. The strength is in stopping them turning. So I'll get that all welded up, and then I'll show you what I've done when I've finished. Okay, so it's all welded up. I put the crown wheel back on it. It's totally finished. Just have a little look. Don't know how much you'll be able to see, but it's welded on all four corners. Welded to the casing all the way around. Never going to look really pretty welds in, we know when you're welding cast, but it's very clean actually. There's not loads of balls splatter everywhere. It's wetted in on the edges of the welds nicely, so it's got good penetration. I'll just show you this as well. It's quite interesting. This tube that I put in to protect the splines, if you look inside it, if I can get you to see that, those balls of weld that have landed in there, that's what would have landed down in the splines there. So, you know, it's a really good job that I put those in. It's worth taking an extra step to either put the drive shafts in or cover them up, so all the bearings, you know, been protected nicely. So yeah, we're all good to go. Hopefully, if you are thinking about doing one of these and you're a bit unsure, then, you know, maybe this has helped you make up your mind that it's perhaps not that difficult. Or if you've been welding them and having trouble with them because maybe you didn't strip them in the past, now you know how to. then hopefully it's helped someone. Like I say, it's not the way to do it, or the right way or the wrong way. This is just how I do it, and I've never had any problems. Been doing them for years and years and years. I've done maybe 50 of them. So yeah, if you like the video, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.